Hello, everyone. Welcome to Flower Power Live. Now, I want to just get something straight right off the bat. Tonight's plant is not and has nothing to do with bananas. Okay? I just want to clear that up. And now that you know that, let's learn a little bit more about plantain. My name's Allison from the Well Cultivated Life, and thanks so much for joining me here for Flower Power, where I get to share all kinds of things about the amazing ability of plants in this world. So, Plantago major is the botanical name of this plant right here, plantain. And I'm sure you know it because it grows in just about every lawn, everywhere. It also has a cousin, Plantago lanceolata, which is the narrow-leafed plantain. The other one's the broadleaf or common plantain. And that also is very, very common in all around the globe. And I got dirt all over my notes. Now, it has seed heads that produce thousands and thousands of seeds. And this is part of the reason why it really has this reputation for being quite a weed. But as we'll find out in a little bit, it is a plant is a good thing to have around in case of a medical emergency of some sort. So now again, this is not banana's cousin. And in order to alleviate the confusion, we might think about calling it by its other nickname, white man's footprint. And that name alone gives you a bit of information about where it might have come from and what kind of prolific habits it has. It's originally from Europe and was brought over here, of course, by Europeans that came over and invaded, and it spread quite quickly because of its zillions of seeds. But you probably realize that if you've been watching any of my shows, that many of the plants that we use for important medicine are have been brought to North America from Europe. And so why is it that this plant here got the nickname of white man's footprint when so many other plants actually are also kind of like that? And well, it turns out that this is because plantain grows in areas that are high traffic areas, a lot of foot traffic, or even um, before cars and pavement and all that sort of thing, in even like cart trails and things like that. And it has this ability to it's very tough and fibrous. The leaves are tough and fibrous, and it has this ability to grow in these compacted soils and be able to still draw out the nutrients and the water that it needs to survive. And in fact, the name plantago is comes from the Latin word planta, which means foot. So yet another reason why it's the white man's footprint. And the um, this ability to draw out these nutrients for itself is a reflection of what it does medicinally as well. Now, you're probably going to find plantain in your lawn. And again, unless it's heavily sprayed, but if you are watching my shows, you're probably not spraying a lot of chemicals on your lawn. Okay. Having a lot of plantain around is a good thing because it's highly nutritious, and it's also one of these spring greens that we can collect in the spring. And up until the time where it starts to flower, it's still can be used for as an edible. So there's two main types in North America, in the regular temperate parts of North America. And this one on the left is the Plantago major, which is a common plantain, and then the broad or the narrow leaf plantain is the other one here. And you can see the difference here. One of the things that's unique about identifying this is these sort of horizontal stripes, these parallel, not stripes, but veins in the leaves, and they're very fibrous and tough, which is one of the main reasons why they can grow in these heavy traffic areas. They have different types of flower heads on them. The common plantain just has this long, narrow little stalk that comes up, and the narrow-leafed plantain has a fatter flower on it as well. And again, this is the difference between the two flowers. They have the most adorable little flowers on them, very cute. And um, one of the uses of plantain that comes from this particular variety, desert plantain, and there's another variety as well. You can see these big seed heads on there and how it mature seed heads of these much bigger variety. And if you've ever had any problems with digestive issues, you might have taken some of this, these psyllium husks, sometimes known as the brand name of Metamucil. And so this ability for the plantain to have the fiber and also to, it's very sort of gelatinous and has a lot of mucilage in it, that is potentially helpful for some people with digestive system. It can be irritating to others. And so it's probably better to learn a little bit more about the plant itself and use it in a slightly different way. Now, it has been used for centuries, and while it is good for our digestive system, I want to tell you about its most popular use, and that is, or well known use, I should say, the thing it's famous for, which is as a drying remedy. And by this, I do not mean that it knows how to make good pictures. I mean that it's good at drying out toxins inside of our skin. It's also known as the Band-Aid plant. It's got a few nicknames here. And so it's really useful for any situation where there's any kind of poison, such as that needs to be brought out, such as bee stings, spider bites, snake bites. In fact, another name for plantain, for the broadleaf or the common plantain, its little narrow flower gives it the name snakeweed. I suppose it looks like a little snake. And so, in any kind of acute situation, and I've used this so many times on kids when I used to work at the school, they chew up a piece of, get a bee sting, grab a plantain out of the lawn, chew it up, and put it on like a poultice, and it helps to draw out the bee sting, and it can quickly relieve uh, by drawing that out. It's also cooling. It is soothing, anti-inflammatory, and vulnerary, which means that it's basically for wound healing and can help to stop bleeding. So if you were in the wilderness and you got a bad cut, you grab a plantain leaf and put that on there, and that would help as well. Now, it doesn't just draw out sort of chemicals like these venoms. It can also actually help with drawing out a sliver or a shard of glass or something like that that you might get in underneath your skin. And if you had that, or you had a more serious snake bite type of venom, you would really want to do more than just chew up a leaf and stick it on your on the area. You would want to use a like a decoction, which is just like a tea that you boil for a while. Use that, make it into a poultice, so you can mix it with some other more powdery herbs like slippery elm, and create a poultice for that to really help to draw out some of these more serious types of conditions. Now, one of the reasons why it is so effective, well, one of the ways that we use it is it can be the leaves can be taken and just made into a little put into some oil, made into an infused oil. I've got this going here. I started this a few weeks ago, and put it into the window, let it kind of heat and infuse into your oil, and then can be made into a salve or just as an oil. And then that's nice too, because it sticks right on the skin for if you have a wound, or if you have, again, something that you need to draw out of there. And part of the reason why it works so well is that it has this chemical called allantoin, which helps to regenerate tissues. And this is the same compound that's also found in other herbs, in particular comfrey. And so both of these are really good. It's a little bit more mild than comfrey. So some people are all weird about comfrey because it has a chemical in it that supposedly is not good for you. But for the wound healing, comfrey would probably work as well. Comfrey is very rough though, and I wouldn't want to be putting that directly on my skin. It can be very irritating to your skin. So this is where plantain would be a much better choice for something that you wanted to put directly on your skin. It also has an affinity for teeth and gums and can be used for an abscess tooth. You could just do like a mouth rinse, like make a strong tea and then rinse your mouth with it. And then it's also effective for an abscess tooth as well. And if that wasn't enough, it can also be taken internally for any kind of like intestinal distress, like food poisoning or diarrhea or anything along those lines, where things are very somewhat infected, but they're also irritated. And so it needs to be, not only does it need to get some of that stuff moved out, draw some of those things out, the inner lining of our mucous membranes needs to be soothed and healed. And so this is, again, one of these amazing plants that has these two has this ability to do these two opposite actions at the same time. So astringing means drying out and sort of tightening up, but then it's also moisturizing at the same time. So it's like drying and moistening at the same time. Let me tell you, you are not going to get that from a chemically extracted pill that you're going to get from a pharmacy. Just my opinion. Now, if that wasn't enough, this cooling and moistening properties is also good for any type of allergies or other sorts of respiratory distress like asthma. And it can be, especially if you're like dry and itchy and have a dry cough, plantain is indicated for that. So, the um, wonderful parts about plantain can also be found in the flower essence. And the flower essence, according to Daughter of Wand, she uh, says that this is really, really good. If you take sort of the metaphor of the plantain being a type of plant that just can grow wherever and is always just kind of trampled on, she found that this was really useful for people who are dealing with kind of like injustice sorts of situations, or um, releasing your beliefs or resentment towards situations where you were not really treated fairly. And she says that it has a history of cleaning toxins, in this case, mental, emotional, and spiritual beliefs that are creating bitterness, an entitled sense of ownership, or vengeance that is creating blind spots and negatively impacting your life. It has the ability to lighten up the um, and give you ease, helping to give a larger perspective around fairness. And Freedom Flower Essence says that plantain flower essence releases bitterness and resentment. It dissolves negative and repetitive thought patterns that keep you stuck in old cycles. So, if you have gone through something like that, things that you just can't let go of, or you feel like you're being treated unfairly, you might consider some plantain flower essence. Now, our card of the day is from the Earth Herbcrafter's Tarot, and it is the Ace of Water. The aces in this deck is like the ones, they are considered to be beginning plants that are a perfect starting point for those who are just getting into starting to work with herbs. Plantain is a very safe herb for everyone to work with. And they're also plants that have been used or are thought of as really just being weeds, when in fact they are incredibly useful. So they have a long history of use in herbalism. Now, the words on the card say follow your heart, trust your instincts and intuition. Your capacity for life is limitless. And I love this message, I have to say, especially the part about our capacity for life being limitless. The picture shows a plantain that looks like it's probably a narrow leaf plantain, and it's growing on a riverbank with, the breeze blowing, and it's soaking up all the water. You can see the tiny little um, flowers growing on the side of the flower stalks, and it's just in this place where it's enjoying itself. Now, plantain doesn't always enjoy itself because it's often growing in a place where it's getting trampled all the time, and yet it still thrives. Plantain is a survivor. It can take the abuse and just keep on growing. It's partly because it has these super fibrous leaves that are able to uh, take a lot of trampling. And the thing is, though, you will hardly ever see a plantain. I mean, this was growing in my garden that doesn't have some holes in the leaves like this. So it can take a lot and still keep going. But can you imagine how lush and beautiful these plants would be if they weren't getting trampled all the time? If they were actually in a place that was clear and open and free of being trod upon. So all their seeds could spread out and create more beauty in the world. And this plant is powerful medicine, and yet it's often not, uh, it's easily missed. It is very taken for granted. Like I said, it's trampled upon, and people are unaware of it being beneath their feet. So, the question for today is, what is your powerful medicine that you might be ignoring? And perhaps maybe you're even trampling on it, right? Whatever it is, I bet that the fibers of this magic in you are strong, just like the plantain plant. So, seek out this magic. Don't ignore this little part inside you. I'm talking about the thing, the little extra spark that it's not necessary to have a meaningful and useful life, but it's that like little extra thing, the thing that gives you a smile, the thing that people could probably benefit from you allowing out of its little space inside. And so the question is your magic just fine, or should you be letting it out this week? So giving it a little bit of attention can take it to this point of thriving. These inconspicuous aspects of ourselves, take some time to look at what yours is and whether or not you need to pay a little more attention, notice it a bit more, and give it the love that it deserves, that special part of you that is unique to you, that magical part that you know you have inside. So that's the message from Plantain tonight. Thanks so much for joining me. If you are watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe to my channel. And I look forward to seeing you next week. If you're watching this the week of the 13th, stay tuned for a special announcement about a new event that I am running coming up in the near future, the herbally inspired summer retreat. So stay tuned for more information on that coming up soon. Take care, everybody. Thanks so much for watching.